What's up everyone, Thralls Metal here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you. So another one we had on our radar in terms of larger releases for the end of October was the newest one from Whitechapel, Kin. This comes out on the 29th of October on Metal Blade Records. This band formed in 2000 in Knoxville, Tennessee. This is their 8th album overall, and the winds of change have kind of been blowing through Knoxville, or wherever they live now. I mean, that's where they started, but the Valley was definitely a big shift in Whitechapel's overall sound, which, I mean, honestly, they're probably one of the most well-known deathcore bands out there. They really helped kind of spearhead and popularize that whole sound way back in the early to mid-2000s. And with 2019's The Valley, they definitely changed it up a little bit, incorporating more clean vocals, songs that were definitely more moody and atmospheric, and that album had a really dark theme in terms of frontman Phil Bozeman reflecting on his life as a child, and this new album definitely continues that theme. And with that theme comes maybe a little bit of a shift in terms of the overall feel of their albums. Tons of aggression is usually right out front with Whitechapel. They are heavier than hell. But with this new sound, I guess you could say, or refreshed sound, or I don't know. It gets difficult to really describe what they're doing now. You see a little bit less aggression and more of like a reflective nature in terms of the overall feel of it. It doesn't feel as, biting right out front, but still has its moments. Now, in terms of lineups, this is the first album to feature Alex Ridiger as their new drummer, who that dude is a session wizard. I've seen him play in a shitload of bands. Incredible player, so they definitely poached a solid drummer on here. Now, the opening track, I Will Find You, kind of sets the pace in terms of stuff you are going to hear on it, and pretty much kind of across the board. The opening is kind of a dusty country road sort of acoustic medley, and then it just explodes into, well, I don't even know if it's necessarily what Whitechapel really does. It feels more melodic death metal-ish. There's a lot of stuff on here when it comes down to the heavier, faster, more up-tempo stuff. It just kind of sounds more like Hypocrisy or early In Flames or At the Gates. You definitely get that on I Will Find You, and you also get that later on To the Wolves, which pretty much sounds like a straight up melodic death metal song. Now, this opening track pretty much kind of shows you a little bit of everything you're going to get on here. You get the fast, aggressive stuff, you get breakdowns, and you get clean interludes. And one of the things I have to say on this is Phil Bozeman is an impressive vocalist. This dude manages to conjure two completely different voices. They could not be any further apart. On the one hand, he can growl like a demon and has this really low, just well-enunciated growl. Like, he's been known for it for a while, and now he's really showing off the fact that he can sing. Like, he's a pretty solid singer, and his singing style is so far removed from the growls. Like, they don't even sound like it's the same person, because he's very breathy and kind of has like an occasionally Maynard-ish delivery, especially when you get down to the very Tool-ish bridge on Lost Boy, which was one of the early singles. And that kind of came out of nowhere when I heard that single, because that song is high-octane blast beats, again, kind of that more melodic death metal sound, but it has their token big chuggy riffs on there. And then you get to this bridge, which sounds like they just spliced in a Tool song for a second before exploding once more. It can be a little tricky to get a hang on these really interesting transitions, especially vocally and musically on here, because you're in for a ride on this one. And, well, I think The Valley might have been slightly divisive with some fans, but I think overall most people embraced it. I thought it was pretty good. I think this one's going to be a little bit tougher to digest. Now, the natural reaction to having some success with, having clean vocals on there is to incorporate them more. At least that's what I think they thought, and they have a hell of a singer, so why not? But some of this, I think, is a bridge too far, because some of the music is so far removed from really anything that Whitechapel has done, it sounds like a completely different band. Songs like History is Silent, Anti-Cure, and Orphan, which was another single, and believe me, that one caught me off guard, are very far removed, especially Orphan. Orphan is kind of a radio rock song. Now, it's interesting that it doesn't really follow like the standard verse, chorus, bridge, maybe not a bridge, and then onto the chorus or maybe another verse, the radio rock formula. It kind of meanders around, but it is entirely clean vocals. It's really not heavy at all, and it's very different, and I think it might have been best served in a side project, because this is probably the most non-Whitechapel song I've ever heard Whitechapel write. But I at least kind of respect it because they committed to it, the entire thing. History is Silent kind of does the same thing. It opens up like a very 80s rocker kind of acoustic ballad. I was already uncomfortable. And then while it's kind of building this up with, clean vocals, acoustic melodies, it's kind of soft and kind of dark and dirgy. It then decides to throw in growled choruses, and honestly, at that point, you should just sing it. You should have just committed to the whole thing being a clean vocal song, because even the music behind it doesn't necessarily match up to the intensity of Phil's growls. When they are, firing on all cylinders, delivering heavy songs like Blood-Soaked Symphony, which almost sounds like a bloodbath song. Like, it is heavy, it is groove-laden. There's something about the way that Phil's vocals are going that kind of remind me of, Michael Ockerfeldt, except, he's doing much more like rapid-fire vocals. The riffs and the mood of it, it just feels like a straight-up old-school death metal song in spots. And honestly, probably my favorite track on here. This delivers pretty much all the heavy that is kind of missing on here. Now, there are definitely moments within other songs. I really liked the opening to Without Us. It kind of has this just dirty sounding syncopated chug, just like nasty single notes, and they're really letting like how heavy that tone is just kind of resonate there. But then it kind of goes into clean vocals after that. And it just feels like a weird place to transition to, because then it goes into this, again, kind of musically built to be a power chorus, but he's growling over it, and it still feels radio rockish, and that is kind of a huge problem on here. This album sounds like a musical battlefield, almost to the point where it's like two distinct different versions of Whitechapel. One version of Whitechapel is still the old guard, still, the This Is Exile, self-titled, that sort of nasty, heavy sound. And then the other band that's called Whitechapel wants to be a headliner at Rocklahoma, like really bad. And I think that side is winning. There is so much like really uneven about this album, like the weird transitions, like they feel like they're kind of just forcing in clean vocals and melodies versus just kind of being straight ahead heavy. When they are being straight ahead heavy, it sounds good again. Like, it sounds cohesive. It sounds like this was the direction they were going. They weren't going to wander from it. And I think for that, they write better songs. To the Wolves and Blood-Soaked Symphony are great examples of this. They are straight ahead and they are kind of singular in purpose. Whereas a lot of these songs kind of wander around and kind of try to find their way into, I don't know, different fan bases. This is just an odd album to listen to, especially the entire time looking at the album cover and just going, this does say Whitechapel, doesn't it? Yep. And honestly, it's hard for me not to compare this to The Valley, because The Valley made quite an impact on pretty much Whitechapel's fan base, deathcore community, etc. And I think they did everything that they're trying to do on this one a lot better on that one. I think the songs flowed more naturally. The clean vocals, while they were a little bit jarring, it kind of fit. This feels way more jarring. Like, they are really trying to shoehorn every clean melodic passage they can in there just to be more melodic. I have to credit them, though. I think in terms of these last couple of releases, they're getting better at using three guitarists in terms of layering melodies, and Ben Savage is throwing in some really killer, very emotive solos on here. And I know, like, with the themes of the album, I think maybe some of the music would have to change because this is kind of like a dark reflection. But I feel like it's moving so far away from Whitechapel's core sound that this is going to alienate fans a little bit. This kind of lacks the bite that was still there on the Valley, and you just kind of hear a lot of this stuff colliding rather than gelling. Like, again, that sort of fight between two different Whitechapels. I'm still firmly for the old school Whitechapel. I still look back on those albums pretty fondly. This new one, I don't know if I really like this at all, honestly. And honestly, what really sucks is I think one of the strongest assets on here is one of the things that kind of hurts this album, and that is Phil's voice. He's an incredible singer. Like, I think he has a legit really good voice, and he shows off some really impressive range on Orphan for damn sure. His growls are still biting, and, you know, he can still deliver all of that with a lot of energy on there. But that harsh switch up in terms of style here, and again, it feels kind of like radio rock on some spots. Like, I don't know, like, I don't even know if I can call this a deathcore album, because most of it really isn't deathcore. Those shifts into more like radio rock-ish territory, I don't know, really kind of make this like a really difficult one for me to digest. And it's weird because, again, musically, I don't really have any problems with this. You know, they're solid musicians. They know how to write good songs. It's just this one, I think they were just sort of forcing this, like, all right, we need to keep doing what we did on the Valley. And I don't know if these songs really gelled as well in the studio as they did on the Valley. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give this a 2. Honestly, I didn't care for most of this, and it isn't as though it isn't executed well. It's just what they're executing is not necessarily the thing I like, so I kind of have to go by that. I don't know what's going on with this band. Again, the Valley kind of, you know, worked it in doses. There were more clean vocals for damn sure, but I think it was way more cohesive. Like, it really worked together well. It still had enough elements that you instantly recognize with Whitechapel. This, there are songs in here, if I played them for you and you knew Whitechapel and you hadn't heard this, you would not think they were Whitechapel. Like, it is so vastly different. And as much as I like hearing a band change its style over time and, you know, really incorporate different elements, different does not always equal good. Different sometimes just equals different. And in this case, some of it equaled bad. There are some legit bangers on here, but there are not enough to save it from this very confusing and kind of dull listen, which sucks because I really like the Valley. I kind of wanted to see where they would go from there, and I kind of wish they hadn't gone so full bore towards one side, because this feels uneven, and I don't know what's going to happen next with this band. I mean, I think this will probably still be successful and resonate with some fans that really liked what they did in the Valley and wanted to hear more of those clean elements. But I have to think that there's going to be fans that really, really don't care for this. And yeah, I'm kind of one of them. Again, check it out. Form your own opinions. Don't just listen to me. I'm just some grumpy old fuck on the internet that doesn't like radio rock very much. Yeah, I wish I had more positive to say about this, honestly, because, I mean, I know there was a lot of heart and emotion that went into this, especially when you consider the lyrical themes, but I don't like it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, check it out for yourself, but I'm not a fan. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there will be a link down below. And we also still have shirts available. If you hit us up on thrallsmetal@gmail.com, put shirts in the message, we will get back to you and hopefully sell you a shirt. So with that, I thank all of you for watching once again. You guys are awesome, and we will catch you later.